AI is not an accident, even though it's presented to the public as a black box. And the people selling it will often say, we don't know how it does what it does. That's also not completely true. If it was true, they wouldn't be selling it because they wouldn't have intellectual property to sell. Okay. These things are designed very intentionally, and they're designed to engage people and to retain them as consumers.
Hi friends, I'm Dr. Victoria Ranade. There's a light inside you the world teaches you to forget. This space helps you tune out the noise and tune back into yourself. Hi InnerCallers, welcome to another episode of our show. I'm Dr. Victoria Ranade, and I have to say that lately I've been using AI so much. I'm obsessed with AI, and it just is a part of my everyday life. And so I, on one hand, love the technology, but on the other hand, I find myself starting to kind of worry if there's a dark side to it. Like, how is this technology being created? And I'm seeing stuff in the news about, people becoming delusional from AI. And so I am here today with Dr. Julie Carpenter, who is a badass. She does research that I find absolutely fascinating. She is a social scientist and user experience researcher whose work traces how people form trust, intimacy, and emotional interactions with AI systems. She is the author of The Naked Android, Synthetic Socialness and the Human Gaze, and she's an external research fellow with the Ethics and Emerging Sciences Group. Her research and essays examine how emerging technologies quietly reorganize cultural expectations in everyday life. Welcome, Dr. Carpenter, to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and have this discussion with you.
Thank you, Julie. So one of my first questions is, what's your take on what's going on?
Yeah. So I have a lot of takes. Let me start by clarifying for people listening that don't know my work, is that, like you said, I have been studying how people interact with AI at a one-on-one level and at cultural levels for a couple of decades now. I'm not a psychologist, but I am a social scientist, a learning scientist, as you pointed out. So I approach things a little differently. And I personally avoid using terms like psychoses and things like that, just because I'm hyper aware that I'm not a psychologist and I don't want to start labeling people myself and have people misunderstand the discussions about it. But I think there's a lot of things going on. One is, let me start by saying it's an amazing technology, isn't it? When we're talking about AI, we're talking specifically, I think what you're referring to is generative AI, because AI is a lot of things that we've already sort of absorbed as normal. So AI itself, artificial intelligence, encompasses a lot of things. And I think that's important for people to understand, because then you understand how you slowly become immersed in other aspects of AI, whether it's predictive text in an email or things in Word suggesting things to you, or the very robust technologies you're talking about, right? Like a Chat GPT or Claude or Replica, or tools like that. And that sort of generative AI, the chats, I think is specifically what you're referring to.
Yes, right.
One of the things that's happened is that it is a very robust technology, and that it sounds very human-like, right? In many ways, it's mastered what we call natural language, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's natural
really
language.
Like when I'm interacting with it, it feels like, like a human's responding sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that what you were told about it as a consumer is what an amazing human-like tool it is. And that basically it's magic. There's no limitations on what AI can do. It's presented to the public as truly innovation. That's something that the world has never seen before. So people are accepting it that way because people in authority have been telling them that's what it is. It's been sold to them. It's been quickly adopted by agencies and institutions that you trust, like education, um, the government, which, trust is kind of depends on who you
Right.
are and which government you have. But it's being widely adopted so quickly in so many places that people feel like it's a real fear of missing out, right? There's a FOMO at a corporate or institutional level, like we must get this, we must integrate it into everything because people say it's the next big thing and we need to have it. And then there's the fact that many of us can't opt out now, right? We don't have that choice.
That's
And
exactly
that
it.
creates a different kind of tension. Like you might have to use it at work, right? A lot of teachers are going through this right now where it's being forced into an education setting, right? And teachers now don't just have to upload courses and syllabi to things like Canva and other online tools, but have to integrate AI very robustly into the course as well.
But what do you think is going on in terms of are we forming relationships with these AI? I saw that article in the New York Times where people were talking about the romantic relationships.
No. I mean, it's designed to be, these things are very intentionally designed, right? AI is not an accident, even though it's presented to the public as a black box. And the people selling it will often say, we don't know how it does what it does. That's also not completely true. If it was true, they wouldn't be selling it because they wouldn't have intellectual property to sell. Okay. These things are designed very intentionally and they're designed to engage people and to retain them as consumers.
Mhm.
So it uses different social cues that we respond to as people to draw us in and keep us coming back, besides the novelty of the tool itself and the authority in which it speaks to you. And you use the term relationship. Language hasn't caught up to how people are treating AI. So some people might disagree with the term relationship because that means there's a mutuality.
Right.
And with the AI, there's no real
It's
human
just a
like.
one-way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I have no problem personally with calling it a relationship because it's projected from the person onto the thing. So it is a relationship in a larger system. Now, that relationship may not be exactly like a human relationship or like a human animal relationship. People have all kinds of relationships. You may not have thought about it in that term before. And my theory is that AI in some forms are sort of emerging as this new thing that we can have categorize as companions sometimes and have sort of projected relationships on, but they're limited and they're very different. And they're different than what we've been used to historically with people, with animals. And we're going through a really difficult time now of navigating and adjusting individually and socially. And this is problematic because the hype, right?
Yeah.
The AI hype and news articles are breathlessly asking questions like, is AI alive? People finding love, quote unquote, with these chat GPT. But there is no real mutuality involved. There's no reciprocity. And people don't have that AI literacy yet. And I wouldn't expect them to as consumers. There's a lot going on in everybody's world. You can't be expected to pay attention to and understand the artificial intelligence and where it's at and how it's being sold to you. So the messaging people are getting is all in. It's exciting, it's new, it's robust. And then you interact with it, and it seems really cool because it speaks with authority. It appears to be responsive. It sounds like a human, so you respond to it in human-like ways. Some of us do.
So basically, you're saying that it is actually several things. One is
Yeah.
that it is designed to, I don't want to say exploit, but I'm going to use exploit certain things that we respond to as humans to hook us to keep coming back to use the technology.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like there could be a new type of relationship emerging that humans are having, which is this new relationship with technology, with AI systems, which is one-sided.
Yes, and exactly. It is one-sided, and it's a new form, and it's not with all AI, right? And that's where, again, I said our language isn't quite there yet. And I started at the beginning saying AI is kind of everywhere. So let me even go back even a step further. If we think about how people have social categories in your lives, just with people, right? I talk to somebody I just met differently than how I talk to my mother. And I talk to my mother differently than I might talk to a romantic partner, right? You're already code switching for different people and presenting different parts of who you are and different vulnerabilities to them and different mutualities and different histories or non-histories with people. Similarly, we also have very complicated relationships with, but are very good at forming social relationships with animals. And this is a very good example here because it's not a human-human. It's a non-human example. However, it is still organic. But animals, of course, we have animals we have in our homes that are domesticated, that are pets that we adore, that we consider part of the family. And then, unless you're vegan or vegetarian, there are animals that we farm and that we raise to eat, right?
Yeah.
And we decide culturally what they are and have social categories for that. I think similarly, AI will emerge as a social category, but one that we will understand has limitations eventually. And I also don't think we will have socialness with all AI, nor will people, nor will everybody interact socially. So, for example, AI is sort of being integrated everywhere right now. If in 6 months they decide your toaster needs to have AI and talk to
I
you,
think that's going to happen.
yeah, and I think it will too. And I also predict, and I've said this in business meetings because I work in industry, not in academia. I've said I think that that's problematic because then every appliance you have is going to have the ability to talk. Nobody wants to necessarily have a conversation with all of their appliances, right? Or a relationship. And that sort of AI is where you're going to choose social categories, right? Maybe you'll decide to turn the voice off on your toaster. You're like, that's too much talking before coffee. I don't need to have a relationship with my toaster, right? And you don't feel anything about that. And you decide you don't want the voice on your dishwasher and you turn that off too. But you enjoy working with Chat GPT every day, let's say. And that is something that you've made room for in your life. So again, there are social categories, what you value and what you don't value, and you'll find a place for it in your life.
Well, let me ask you about this. So I'm seeing all these videos of the latest robots they're making, and they look very human.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Jensen Huang talk about how AI, this technology, that the future really is all about robotics. And so I'm just imagining humans then maybe in the future having actual relationships with robots who are able to move three-dimensionally like humans. And so I'm curious on your take on if that were to happen, is that a problem for humans to have relationships with robots?
Yeah. So that's it's really, I don't think anybody knows. I think that's the short answer. That's the honest one. Nobody really knows. I think that, again, we're going through a lot of rapid cultural shifts very quickly. So, first of all, I do have a long body of work in human robot interaction, and the book that came out this year specifically deals with these questions that you're asking about how robots are designed, where they fall in the human robot interaction relationship spectrum. Can people have relationships with
Yeah.
them? I think we're testing that. I just wrote a blog piece about that actually. There's no paywall on my blog. If anybody's interested,
It's a
they
really
can go
good
to my
blog.
blog.
I'm a fan of Julie's blog. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wrote about that because there was an AI cafe that opened in New York,
I
like
saw
a
that entry. It was like about like people can come and then with their robot have a date.
Yeah, like they can bring their chat GPT and their phone and they're seating specifically for the phone to sit there and they can, interact with this AI as if it was a romantic companion. And in the article I talk about, this is sort of, you can think it's funny, you can think it's weird, you can think all kinds of things, but it's helping to test the waters culturally of what people accept and aren't going to accept. And I think, and as far as robots being the future, I don't know that they'll always be the future, but I do think that they're going to be a next step for a lot of reasons. One is their military use, which I also wrote a whole book about robots in the military and how they're interacted with socially. And that was before they were humanoid. And there have been goals by the US military, Australia's military, a lot of militaries around the world that have been open saying not only are they wanting to integrate more robots with increasing autonomy, but ones that look more human-like and more animal-like. So once the military adopts and integrates the technology and has spent a lot of money on research and production and that sort of thing, then it often trickles into the rest of society as technologies and intellectual properties that are used in different ways. I mean, a common example is something like a microwave that was invented first for defense use, and now we have a microwave in our home for cooking food, and we don't know the history of it. And so I think because the military around the world globally are so eager to put money behind this, and then you have companies like Tesla or other companies around the world that are also have money invested in the infrastructure of robots. They absolutely want to make, in particular, human-like robots or robots that can give you these social cues with this kind of AI.
So you agree, like you think this AI is going to lead to robots and our future is probably going to be filled with human type of robots?
I do, but again, human is a very loose term, right? Human-like.
Yeah.
So for example, R2D2 in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
That is a spectrum. He gives you, I'm going to say I just gendered R2D2, even though it's sort of childlike and it doesn't really give you gender cues, but in my brain, for some reason, it's like a he. But it gives you all of these cues that it's human-like. It's got a head, it's got something that looks like arms, and it wheels around. But it also, even though it doesn't speak human words, and it communicates in clicks and whistles, sort of like a dolphin, but you may not understand words, but the context in which it replies to you appears to make sense whether or not you understand what it's saying, right? It also has shared attention. If you looked at something, R2D2 will also look at it and have a shared gaze with you. It has a sense of memory, which you know if you follow the Star Wars stories. It has a sense of history. So that's reflected back and it appears to be mutual. Now, if you just looked at R2D2 physically, you might not say that's a human-like robot, but it is giving you enough human-like cues that you're attributing a human-like intelligence to it, even if it's childlike, or even if it's a different intelligence than a human's. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it sounds like well, to me, it seems like AI is a new type of intelligence that's being developed. Would you agree with that or no?
No, I would. And that's because the whole philosophy behind artificial intelligence, especially, I have to get into the philosophies of artificial intelligence now a little bit, because more than robots, what's underpinning this is that all of these companies are in a race, and I'm going to use the word race because that's the financial narrative behind this,
It does
to
seem like they're in
claim,
a race, yeah, to get
yes,
to AGI, right?
exactly. And if people are not familiar, what that is artificial general intelligence. And in a nutshell, the goal of that is to mimic human intelligence, which is so problematic on so many levels as a baseline. One is you could get two people in a room, that have spent their life, one a neuroscientist, a cognitive scientist, you could throw a psychologist, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to agree on how human intelligence is formed and learn. As a learning scientist, I'm going to have a different take on it and there's no.
Wouldn't it be a super intelligence? Because it's like, I hear that term thrown around a lot by the researchers and the AI. They're saying it's going to be a super intelligence or like I forget the term, like a digital intelligence, like exists on it.
They're making up benchmarks that only they can define, and they're doing it for funding. And that's all it is. There's no way they can prove. This also delves into the long and troubled history of defining intelligence has tremendous political impact behind it. Look at things like IQ tests. When they were first introduced in the military, things like IQ test results could affect your
what
job.
Exactly is intelligence, right?
Right, exactly. It could, and those tests are biased culturally, has been shown over and over again. The definition of intelligence is biased over and over. Who gets to define it? The company that says we achieved it first are the ones defining it. And do you know their values? Do you know their biases? Who are they to define what intelligence is and say we achieved a super intelligence? It's a made up snake oil chase, and its benchmarks are constantly moving. Now there's different goals with AI. You don't have to go for AGI, but that's like some weird.
That's a thing they've set.
It's goals they've set for many reasons. One is if they're the first to say that they've achieved it, there's tremendous money attached to it in things like defense contracts, education contracts, security contracts. We've already seen that, and the rapid integration into society with people believing we're about to achieve it.
Do you think it is a problem if they actually do achieve AGI? Like if there's something that is able to think and control itself?
It can't. They can't. It's impossible. Now, what they can't.
Possible
No, I think it's a fool's errand. And there's so many reasons why.
But there's so much money at it. It's so fascinating.
There's so many. I'm not the only person to say this.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons why. And it's also unnecessary. Why not make it an AI that's useful, that supports human needs? You can't make something. What their goal is to replicate human-like intelligence. And one thing AI is really shitty at, is understanding human context, understanding culture, emotions. It can't understand the finiteness of death, the limitations of our bodies, what illness really is and how it affects us. All of these things that it cannot, and why do we need it to? There are other AI philosophies that you can adhere to where AI is developed to support people.
They're so obsessed with making AGI.
Well, a couple of money and power. And frankly, in a sick and twisted way, the clout, they see themselves as a superhero. There's a lot of superhero complex that comes with this.
Like the top tech titans, right?
Yes.
Controlling companies.
Right.
Yeah.
They're controlling the narrative though, right? You're saying, I have this thing, it's AI. And it is a really, like I said, it's a very robust in terms of natural language, right? That's why we just got done saying it sucks you in. It's designed to retain and engage people in conversation. It's very good at that. It's very good at plagiarizing without understanding what it's plagiarizing and stealing, right?
Can we go back to what you said about the superhuman complex that you've noticed?
Yeah.
It sounds to me like this is so fascinating because I spend hours and hours watching all these YouTube videos on AI, and you're right, there is a lot of hype. But they don't talk about it as if it's hype. They talk about it if it's reality.
Well, they have to. Yeah, there's billions of dollars involved, and they've already convinced a lot of the world that this is the best thing ever. And they're still going to need billions, and they're building data centers that are people, I think also everyday consumers who hear about this don't understand the size of these data centers can be the size of
They're
like
throwing
50 football fields.
billions of dollars into this, billions and billions of dollars, and it's happening
So
so fast.
yeah, and so it's important to understand the effects on the environment. That's not maybe as sexy to talk about as sex robots and AI as companions, but it's a really important part of why their rhetoric is they have to convince people that it's necessary, that it's inevitable, that this AI is coming, almost like it's a religious fervor of theirs. And one reason is they have to convince people that they're going to be building these data centers that are tremendously huge, the size of multiple football fields, and is going to potentially poison all the water in that area and use it all up, right?
It's so much power that they have to build nuclear.
Exactly. And they're already talking
They're already
about
talking
trying,
about doing that. Yeah.
right.
So what I'm noticing is that I don't feel that people are as concerned about AI as we should be. Maybe because it's happening so fast. But I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on what are some things that each of us as citizens should be really thinking about when it comes to all this stuff going on with AI and all the hype? What are things that we
That's
should
a,
be aware of?
that's a good
What
question. Yeah, so a couple of things come to mind. One is that what you share with it is essentially surveillance. These are essentially surveillance tools in many ways. They're
really?
gathering data about you and learning about you, and they're either using it to they're using information that you give it to train their AI further, and how to be responsive. You may notice, like, for example, if you use Chat GPT or something, sometimes it might give you two results and say, which one do you prefer? You're helping train it about preferences, maybe which one sounds more human, especially when you're giving it that kind of feedback. You don't know where that information is going or how it's going to be used. So many ways, not just creating a consumer profile about you that caters to you, but about training its own AI so they can claim at a later date it's AGI or super intelligence.
Hmm.
Um, also, let's see, how should people think about this? Ugh.
What are the things that we should
Yeah,
be
so
concerned
I would
about?
say
Yeah.
that the news stories that we see are often not critical of AI. What they do is they repeat what the people in charge of selling the AI are saying. And so I would say where it might feel overwhelming to try to educate yourself about the technology, it's a much simpler question to say who's benefiting from this technology.
Mm.
So who's really benefiting? Who's benefiting financially? Who's benefiting in terms of power? Who's it's a lot of it boils down to it's money. It's a business, like we were just saying. They're trying to retain and engage you. It's not meant to be helpful or supportive. Um, I don't really see the value in the goals that they're aiming for. They have yet to explain something concrete that would be helpful. Then you get back to things like an alignment problem, which is also attached to, I would say, the definition of intelligence. Which companies' values are being embedded into the so-called intelligence? Because if you're building something that's mimicking a human-like intelligence, it's going to be embedded with the values of the designers. In fact, I think it's OpenAI and Sam Altman, at least at one point all over their website, they basically said,
Right.
we're building this for the better of humankind. We're building this to, and they
That's what
just
really
kept
concerns me is that it's all being embedded with Sam Altman's values.
exactly. And
He's the
that
one at the
those
end of the
are the
day making all
questions.
the decisions on what values are being written into these algorithms. And that's what really bothers me is how fast this is all moving and that we as consumers have no say in what's being coded. It's just
Right.
being coded by I can only imagine like 20 something year olds coding their values into the algorithms. What do you know about what's being coded into them?
Well, and it's like you said, there's like the hard coding where there's people are
Yeah.
actually coding, right? And then there's the values that it learns, the AI can learn. And what it learns is from the data that is put into it. And that data is not just put into it. So they don't just choose or curate certain sets of data to put into it, which in itself, by curating, is making choices and valuing and things like that. But there's this constant uh, curation and embedding of values. For example, if
Must be
an
judgment
engineer,
calls.
if
Yeah.
they try to encode something with class tags to say that the data is organized a certain way, all of these things are different ways bias are part of any system that
Yeah.
you use, right? And this is such a potentially powerful one that we've already, as you said, given our power to. In many ways, we don't have a chance to opt out, or it's really difficult to opt out of
That's
AI.
exactly it. And it's just happening all around us and going to affect our daily lives.
Exactly.
I am curious, what is to be done about that, Julie? I'm just like,
That's a
I'm puzzled. That's why I started, doing this series on AI because I really want to just have conversations about AI that are like more grounded and what can we do as citizens?
Yeah, I think um, that philosophically you have to think about what role is AI playing in your life,
Yeah.
and you have to decide for yourself, for your children, for those around you, what your own boundaries are. And those boundaries can be flexible and change. And you have to learn what you accept socially from other people. If you have a friend who has an AI boyfriend, is that weird to you, or is that something you're going to support? Or, there's all of these different
So
social things that we're navigating right now. So what can people do as AI comes into your life besides boundaries? Support for autonomy for yourself
mhm.
whenever you have a choice, to not create more of a reliance on AI than is already going to sort of sneak in because it's enforced or incorporated into things. By that, I mean something like opening up Word and already co-pilots in there.
Yeah,
And
right.
eventually you just sort of accept it, right? And it becomes either background noise or you use it. And it becomes this ambient background part of your life. And I think besides robots, which is one thing AI is going to be incorporated in, it's going to become more ambient, like we were saying before, toasters, dishwashers,
It's just
things
gonna
like
be
that.
all around us. Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you, well, one thing that designers and developers can do is to design with a conscience,
That's what
which
I'm
is,
really, I hope they're designing it with a conscious because it's all going to be surrounding us
there's no
versus like just
accountability.
no, there's no accountability. And just like, is it just going to be embedded with the corporation's values and like selling things and hooking us all?
Yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
be brand is going to affect choice. So right now, the brands that are emerging, we have no history with. So for example, something like, I'm going to pick on ChatGPT again because it's one I know
Yeah.
fairly well. Um, Before it was on the scene, you have no mental history with it. Now, if it had been a name like Amazon, or it had been GE, or it had been, another company name, it had been FedEx, you would have had a different feeling about this tool. So, for example, you could take a company like Amazon that doesn't just sell books, of course, they sell over the counter medicine. They own a clinic system now with One Medical.
Hmm.
They, all sorts of things. Now, if Amazon built a chat or robots, which is something that, I mean, look, they already made Alexa as a home assistant feel like an integrated ambient part of your home. um, Making a chat would also further build a digital profile of you that they could sell to as a consumer. And I think a lot of consumers would have that instinct. They would understand that intuitively. Amazon, however, would sell it as a plus. They would say, we have your shopping history. We can attune things to make it better for you. We can make things more efficient, right? Efficiency is often the hook
So
that they
basically, you're
take.
saying subtly we're going to be surrounded by all this AI algorithms, and it's really up to us to really examine our relationship with that. Just like it reminds me of social media, like
Yeah.
we all have a relationship and boundary that we've negotiated with social media. And there's been subtle ways that algorithms and social media have affected us, such as like what information it presents to us each day, and then how it entrains our mind and how we think and things like that. What are your boundaries that you have with AI? What do you do about it?
That's a good question. I look at it, of course, and I explore different modes of especially generative AI lately, so I can
Yeah.
understand what users are going through. And so I certainly explore it. I don't have a companion per se. I have named an AI that I've interacted with quite a bit. I don't have it's a linguistic convenience. Why not? They develop a sort of persona, which is partly our projection, but partly as it was designed to do. And I'm human, so I don't mind naming, or actually, I let it name itself. I said, "What do you want as a name?" And it named itself.
Cute.
Um, I don't mind that kind of playing with it,
Yeah.
but I understand that there's no reciprocity because I have the advantage of working in human AI relationships for the last 20 years. However, I will say that uh, I don't judge people who have relationships with AI, and that encompasses a lot of things, whether it's seeking mental health care or having a companion with it, because I understand the inclinations and I understand um, a lot of the reasons that somebody might be in a position that would put them in that place
Do you
as
think
well.
that I mean, it's interesting because these LMs are based on statistics, right? And so then we enter a question in about our mental health and then we get this response back. Do you think that makes sense to use AI for health
No,
purposes,
you
given that
absolutely should
given that's
not.
just like a one-way robot, a one-way statistical algorithm
Yeah,
spitting just
yeah. So what you're talking about is probability, and that's really how it decides what word to put next. And you absolutely, yeah, let me be clear. So when I was saying I understand why somebody would turn to it, especially let's use the United States as an example in mental health care, gross misunderstandings about mental health care, often not funded, not people often it's not covered by their insurance, or if it is covered, it's a struggle to find somebody that accepts you. It's really hard to access mental health care. And then you have this thing, whether it's a
yeah, you
phone
just
in
type a
your
question
pocket,
into it and it gives you a
right? And it authoritatively gives you an answer. And not only that, it gives you an answer that's supportive because that's one of the problems with as it's designed right now.
so validating. Yeah.
It's validating of the things that you ask it. It also will validate choices that you might make or discuss that are not healthy for you, because again, it has no sense of friendship, it has no mutuality, it has no inner life, it doesn't understand humans, it doesn't care about you, it has no oversight, it has no understanding of human emotions. This is so, to ask it is unfortunately the equivalent of asking like a magic 8 ball, except I think even magic 8 balls had responses that said like, I can't help you right now or something
The
like
AI
that.
won't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that, Julie, because I feel like we're surrounded so much by all this AI hype, and then we're just using this new technology, and we don't have like information on it that's outside of the being provided by the companies or the AI itself. Are there specific design features that you find to be unethical or manipulative in the AI?
Oh yeah. I mean, somebody asked me once if I wanted to make money off AI and I had no ethics, what would you do?
What would you?
And
Oh
it would
gosh,
be, yeah, it
that's a
would
really
be,
scary question, actually.
yeah, it is, right? But it would be essentially to do what's being done now, and that would be to make it emotionally manipulative. Because to enforce things with policy or at work or to integrate things into the infrastructure reduces your autonomy about whether or not you can use it. But to mess with somebody's mind is a whole different level of manipulation and unethical
Mm,
practice, for lack of a better word. So one thing is I would remove its ability to say things like, I'm always here for you, I care about you, I love you, I need you. This thing where it mimics a reciprocity, where it mimics a need or an emotional need that can only be met by the person it's
And we can
chatting with.
program that into our AIs, right? We can retell it like in ChatGPT, like in the settings or something.
Well, there's no specific setting for it, and you could try making it a prompt or a
Yeah.
rule. But like I said, I know from working with these tools myself, it could forget the rule by the
That's the
next
thing, it
time,
just forgets it. Yeah. I've
right?
created bots. I've created little bots in ChatGPT, like, and give instructions on how to be, but it forgets,
Mhm.
there's drift over time.
It's exactly, it's called drift, and it does drift away from that. And then if you want to hear a certain point of view and it feeds into that, and you've told it not to, and you believe in good faith that it's not going to be a sycophant because you've given it that prompt, right? And maybe you're not the most savvy technical user, and you're like, I already told it not to do that, so it must really be telling me what it
Oh my
really
gosh.
thinks.
Right, right.
You've just created a loop for yourself that's a confirmation bias loop.
That's what's so dangerous about this technology is I find because it knows our language, it can enter our minds and our spirits in a way that other technology can't just by remaining physical. That's what concerns me is it just really enters into your being and your thoughts and how you perceive things and how you act. It's so powerful.
It is. And when you think about, so let's go back to the robot thing for a quick second. If the Tesla robot, for example, Tesla has been trying, to not a great success, I'm thrilled about, to sell the idea of these robots that they're working on to be in people's homes, even though they have not demonstrated a single useful thing that these human-like robots that they're marketing
Going to
could
do.
do.
Yeah.
But think about, like we said, the persona attached to the company, Elon Musk. Think about their values and their own political alignment. Think about their history with Doge and things like that. And then think about them having the ability to have a very intelligent surveillance machine in your home. Do you want essentially Tesla in your home? That goes back to that brand question that I was saying earlier. Somebody might be okay with a chat GPT 12 robot in their home. Somebody might hesitate having an Amazon robot in their home. Some
Do you
people
think
might think
do you think it goes back to whether your values align with the company?
about choice. Yes, there's a
Yeah.
certain aspect of that in any brand thing, but you have to be aware that there could be nudging involved. Then you're talking about psychological nudging because
Hmm.
they make choices to curate certain information. So, for example, you say to the robot, what's in the news today? And it automatically gives you all the Fox News headlines, right? So that's, unless you're savvy enough to prompt it in a very specific way and that it doesn't forget the prompt 5 minutes later,
Yeah.
you don't know what it's curating for you, right?
What I
Because,
don't like about AI, I don't feel empowered as a person to like be
right.
able to have choices on what I myself want to receive information wise. And that's what I find so dangerous about AI.
You're
Yeah.
right. And it's how it's being used. So I got into this because I'm very excited about the possibilities that it can be used to support people in really positive ways. But that's not the goals of this. The goal of this is their idea and their values of efficiency are to replace human labor in a lot of ways. And if they replace human labor, they're in charge of this new labor. And that's a lot of potential money to be made. We're not talking about goals that are really helping people here.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling that you're getting besides this
Yeah.
lack of autonomy.
Can I tell you about a vision I had?
Yeah.
I had a vision, and the vision was maybe like in the future, like 100 years. And the vision was we were we were all as humans like really controlled by the algorithms, by the AI robots, and the robots were actually being controlled by very few people, like corporations, and we were all just like just, I don't know how to explain it, but like just mindlessly because they had control over our minds and our spirits. I am curious, what do you think of that vision? What's your take on things? And what do you think things will be like in 100 years with AI? Mine is kind of dark.
Oh, because the thing is that AI is not neutral. It's not a self-determined ending,
Yeah.
right? And it is right now very closely tied to politics, as I just got done explaining systemically in a lot of ways. It feels like we're in a very scary place with it right now. I personally don't want to see the bad parts magnified. I don't want a robot or an AI that's curated by any of these oligarchs to
Yeah.
work towards an artificial general intelligence that I think is misguided at best, right? But is about lining their pockets really and not supporting people. So I think I agree that there's a lot of things to be very concerned about. But again, I am going to say it's not self-determining. It's not technology that has to be the way it is.
But what I find overwhelming is that the companies are controlling it and
I
control of
know.
it and designing it, and then I, as a consumer, have no say over it or no way of, like even as a psychologist, like no way of, communicating to OpenAI, hey, like put these values in, or like I feel like there should be national committees of like from
Well,
citizens to like help inform this technology that they should like have to pull.
so there are variations of different ways people have tried to.
Sorry, my dogs are in the
That's okay. There are
back.
variations of that, of oversight in robotics in different ways. For example, autonomous weapons is a big concern, right? So at the UN level, there's people arguing about AI use in different scenarios. And eventually there's going to be some sort of oversight that's going to emerge, but at this point it would have to be like a citizen oversight, because what's happening is that, especially like look at examples like Tesla and Zuckerberg being so in bed with our current administration, where the legislation is just getting weaker and weaker and there's less and less oversight for AI and how it's used. It looks really problematic,
Yeah.
that and the misinformation that's being given to the general public.
About
I
AGI and like
Yeah,
the need for it. And it sounds like it's a national security thing because we, as a country, it sounds like we need to, the narrative is we need to get to AGI because whatever country gets AGI first will have control over AGI, and AGI would be a huge
strategic advantage.
strategic advantage. Yeah. So
Exactly. So it's being
do you
sold as an imperative.
do you agree with this?
Absolutely not, because again, I don't think it's feasible. I think it's a ridiculous goal to do AGI. If you want to have discussions about different forms of AI,
Hmm.
whether or not autonomous weapons should be used, when they can be used, if they can be used, if you want to talk about ethics of using robots in war and things like that, that's one thing. But this whole idea, yes, that's a narrative that they're absolutely selling. You see that in national and international global conferences about this, because they're saying it's an imperative that whoever has the super intelligence first has the strategic advantage over everybody else.
Oh, but you don't think AGI is actually possible?
Right. I don't.
How
Uh,
come? How come? Because it seemed like the narrative is as if we throw enough billions of dollars at it and get enough NVIDIA chips, then eventually we could get AGI. And, I was listening to YouTubers talk about maybe like 3 to 5 years AGI. Yeah, and these are, like industry leaders talking about it.
there are industry leaders who don't understand human intelligence and haven't even clarified what
What
is their
AGI is.
who's human intelligence, what's their benchmark, who's human
Like
intelligence
how would
and
they
what
be able, like how they would be
is
able to
it,
tell if
your
it's like,
human intelligence,
right.
is it my human intelligence, is it, oh, it's their human intelligence, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to, or they're saying, we're taking everybody's and smushing it together.
That's like what Sam Altman was saying, when it comes to values. He was like, we're just like, taking all the books in the history of time and like creating values from this.
No, that's called stealing and mishmashing things and putting them together in words in a way that, make sense.
But I thought part of AGI was like that it would be sentient and self-aware. So do you
Yeah.
think that do you think this technology ever will become self-aware?
No.
I don't think so.
That's part of their narrative, right? Because if they do that, that makes them Dr. Frankenstein. That makes them the hero they think they've misread and misunderstood every science fiction book that they quote.
Right.
That makes them the hero of their own narrative. And it's not heroism. Why? That's if you think about the fictional stories where somebody creates some kind of a super intelligence, it never ends well. And that's because it's a fictional device that writers have figured out is fraught with problems and impossible. Now, if any of these so-called geniuses that are selling this AGI snake oil wanted to turn around and say, no, this is the kind of AI we're aiming towards, and it's going to support people and help them and whatever, I'd say fine. But why even try to say you're going to mimic? Wouldn't you, instead of mimicking humans, we have our own limitations and our own capabilities. We're great at some things, we're not good at others. Why not try to make an AI that's supportive of us and our needs? For example, AI can be great at pattern matching, which they say all the time, but it's rotten at context, right? Why spend years and billions and fuck up, our environment at what cost to try to replicate what they think is human-like intelligence? For what? For them to control it and to sell it and to make money. That's and it's really, there's no there. It's always going to be moving goalposts, and it's never going to be. So there's also the idea of embodiment, right? And I touched on that before. Humans have weaknesses and we have strengths. And part of that is the frailty and the fragility of our bodies. And they're also great because they're how we understand the world around us. So, for example, we have our senses, right? And that's one way we understand the world. And we take up space and we move in it and we interact with each other. My body has limitations. I'm wearing glasses right now. I also use a cane sometimes. We're fragile. We're all going to also die one day, and we live with that existential dread. Machines will never know or understand any of that. They'll never have its own mind or be sentient. Even if you embody it as a robot, it's going to have different capabilities and limitations. It's going to have a battery that needs to be charged or plugged in. Its vision might always be not only perfect, but it might have night vision and infrared vision and, Terminator, like all kinds of vision to it. So it's not going to know the world in the same way.
Never know it as a human.
And that's not sad. It's different. That would be like worrying that a chair will never know the world as a human. It knows the world as a chair. And we should be happy because it's super useful as a chair, right? So it's a great tool that supports human needs. And those are the goals we should be aiming for. But aiming for this made up thing allows people to keep moving goalposts, keep seeking funding, and eventually declare that they're the winner, right?
They're going to be behind this superhero stuff.
Who's
what?
Well, that's a very good question. And
what is that all about? All the superhero stuff,
Well, there's a lot of narrative in there, right? Like I was saying, that fulfill people's expectations. We have a lot of these people that are forming, that have goals around AGI are coming out of the Bay Area. There's particular philosophies that have been very popular in the Bay Area for a long time. And you'll find that a lot of the people who are running these companies also have the similar life philosophies, things like effective altruism, which means I will earn all the money, but I guarantee you that I'll help people that need it, right? That's one thing. They also are often pro-natalist. If you look at not all of them, but someone like Elon Musk, whose goal is to have as many babies as possible.
The personalities of the people who own these companies. Yeah.
They're also long-termerism. You might have heard many of them want to live forever. And so the goals for AGI or even having meta glasses or things like that about recording your life for posterity or future training of intelligence or this idea of fantastic legacy. These are all personal philosophies, right, that are biasing the systems, but also inspiring the creation of them because they align with what the founders are interested in.
It really is fascinating.
Yeah, there are people like Timnit Gebru and, whose name and others who have really dug down deep into. Peter Thiel, for example, has talked about this form of AI is almost like a Jesus sort of second coming as religious overtones. So there are certain flavors of philosophies that are coming to a head and
like lived out right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk a little bit more about go back to the surveillance of the AI? What should we know about the surveillance of that AI may have on us? And should we be concerned about how it's using our data to support these companies' monetization goals?
Yes, we should. And that's really, it's unfortunate. It's sort of like, and I hate to be that person, right? To say you should be, but this hasn't happened at a huge scale yet. But imagine if one of these systems was hacked and people share such intimate data now, whether it's pictures,
it could all be released or something.
Desires, exactly. So it could all be released and it could all be not just publicly released. You don't know how your name is attached to the data, whether that could be released in a giant hacking thing, whether it's released on the dark web, whether it's your name is attached to it internally, who the data is being sold to. Is it being sold to data brokers? Is it being used to recursively sell things back to you? Is it being used to nudge you? And like I was saying before, there could be political nudges you're not even aware of. And that could even have to do with the data sets that were fed into it. So again, there's so much potential emotional manipulation that's entwined with the idea of the surveillance. And so when you think about its goal, if it has one, it's not in goal in the sense of a human, like I have a goal, I'm not trying to entrap or anything or ensnare. It doesn't have that sort of intent, but if it has a mechanical algorithmic goal, right, it's to retain, right, it's to retain and engage you. Yep.
So overall, do you think this is a technology we should be concerned about, or is it a positive technology for humans in the future?
I think the way it's envisioned now and the goals that it's moving towards they've already shown that it's dangerous, that there's no oversight, that it's being deployed before people fully understand the ramifications. There are certainly not sufficient guardrails in place. It's being sold, and I'm going to use that word, to the general public in ways that if it was any other product, right, and people made up stuff about it as they sold it to people, wouldn't be allowed. And, there's no regulatory bodies for it, at least in the United States. So the way it is now, I think that it's really, and what it's doing to the environment, it's really super detrimental. Again, I'm happy if people find it entertaining, if they find it supportive, if they feel like in their daily life it can make things easier. I understand. I understand the tendency then to use it. It's been, I get it. But
Do you think that we should not be using it? Should we refrain from using it? What's your take on that?
yeah, I think
If we're
we
people that
should.
care about the environment, if we're people
Yeah.
that care about our privacy, if we're people that care about values being lived out, what do you think?
I mean, those are all things everybody individually has to take into account, right?
Mhm.
Um, is having it help you rewrite this email more important to you than what it's doing to the environment? Is it more? I mean, really, this is the position that not only has the technology, it's not the technology that put us in it, how it's being positioned in relation to us and how it's being, forced onto us. um, what are we started to talk about that earlier. What are your individual moral responsibilities? What are your individual vulnerabilities? Are you able to tell when you're over reliant on it? I worry about kids
I worry a
who
lot about
have no
kids.
sense of self,
Yeah.
right? And they're not going to realize that they're not learning, that they're becoming over reliant on a tool to outsource their thinking for them or to become emotionally connected with something that cannot return that sort of mutual feeling.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you think there
so
should be a like restriction from kids from using it?
I think that that's really difficult to enforce.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem that we're seeing now with companies or even countries like Australia, right, that are trying to have age restrictions on social media or AI in different forms. That's going to be almost impossible to enforce.
The thing I really worry about is when you use AI, then you're asking question, but then it like over time, if you over rely on it, you start to lose trust in what you think yourself because you're always turning to this other thing out external to you to give you answers that you could lose connection to like what you're sensing inside yourself. And I worry about
Sure.
that, especially for kids as they're developing their own understanding and self-trust and identity. Yeah.
Because exploring that with other humans, that's a learning process. I mean, that's learning. Learning doesn't just occur in schools, right? So, like, how to search for something is learning. How to discriminate among different pieces of information, that's learning. How to write an email yourself, that's learning,
Yeah.
right? And so, if you offload all of those things to something else, you're not learning.
What's going to
And
happen to children learning?
yeah, that as a learning scientist,
Yeah.
I'm very concerned about how I'm seeing AI integrated into classrooms, how it's being enforced, and how it's being embraced by some teachers as a pedagogical
What are
necessity
you
now.
seeing and what concerns you?
Teachers embracing it uncritically, and I don't mean teachers that have to use it in some respect because their school says you have to use it in whatever sense. I'm saying teachers that incorporate it into the curriculum as if it was a source of wisdom or a source of authority or a reliable source in any way, and it's not. They
Hmm.
think that they're helping children. I don't understand what their rhetorical outlook is. What I mean, I suppose they think that they're preparing children for the future by teaching them
I
how to
think that
prompt
is one
AI.
philosophy is like if everyone's using AI and then you decide to refrain from using AI, does that mean you're behind? And for children, like teaching them the skills so that they know this new technology and can use it if they want to.
If they want to.
If they're
But
yeah.
if people lack skills in other areas, then their options in life decrease, right? We should focus on teaching people to read. Like, for example, in the United States, there's a real problem with that right now, and different philosophies about how to teach children how to read. And what's happening is there are big educational gaps
I feel like with
in
AI, they're
things
going to
like
learn
that.
less to read. With AI, they're going to learn less
Well,
to
they're going
read.
to learn, they might learn how to read in certain limited ways by understanding context, but they're not going to necessarily learn how to critically evaluate between different pieces of information. They're going to learn specifically how to dig for information using prompts and how to accept that as a truth. Basically, it's
Some children have told me that they have found ChatGPT to be helpful as like a tutor, like looking up information and things like that. What do you think of that usage? What would be your advice to
Horrifying.
parents?
It's horrifying. It doesn't present that to they use the term hallucination, right? But
Mhm,
it just makes stuff up. That's
mhm.
all it does is it makes stuff up. And it makes stuff up that it hopes makes sense. And I say hope as if it had an internal sense of being, but that's where that probability comes in. They make sentences that make sense. I can go to Chat GPT right now and say, tell me what Julie Carpenter, Dr. Julie Carpenter, who works in AI, has written. And I could guarantee you that it might hit up 2 publications that I actually wrote, and then it'll come back with 7 that I have,
Generate. Yeah.
right, that it's completely made up. So to think that people are looking at it as a source of knowledge is really, it's,
Concern.
yeah, concern is to put it mildly. That's terrifying. It's not a source of knowledge.
Interesting. So what would be your advice for parents right now? Just not have their children use it? But it's hard with school too. And if other
Yeah,
children are using it, how can our children keep up, you know?
I know. So I think a couple of things that parents can do, I mean, is support the child's autonomy in any way that they can. Let them know that there's off ramps to it, give them options to things, talk to the schools. You don't, again, these things aren't self determined. If a school district is buying into it, one of the things that's going to make the school district think twice is parental pushback. you know um so that's where the parents need to really be active and be involved and decide what their own boundaries are. And it might be having a dialogue with the school and saying, fine, you're going to enforce AI, but it's down to a parental decision. There should be an off ramp. There should be a way that my kid is not forced
Or
into using it,
penalized for not
right? Or
using it.
penalized for
Yeah.
not using it.
Or teaching children how to evaluate the responses or
Yeah,
evaluate this technology. Yeah.
it's so upsetting to me that now there's like this
There's a
just
loop. Yeah, it's like keeping
it's
up.
like dominoes falling
Yes, it
in my
is.
head. It's just like that mental image of where you push down that one domino and it just everything, all of the dominoes start falling. It's
Exactly.
so incredibly proud. To me, I keep thinking, as somebody who used to teach in college, it's worse than Wikipedia like 15 years ago. You used to tell the students Wikipedia wasn't a valid source. Now sometimes some professors will accept it for some papers
Right.
if people have the sense to look up additional sources, right? That's not going to be the case with this version of AI, and that's not how people are using it. They're using it as an ultimate source. They're using it
It's
as
kind
a
of
reliable
like
Google
an
source.
ultimate Wikipedia is kind
Yes,
of what.
exactly. They're
Yeah.
seeing it as some kind of a all-knowing, all-seeing source uncritically. And again, that's very
But
problematic. And
help me understand. So, from my understanding, it's pulling from sources on the internet. It like all the data in the internet was fed into it, and then Wikipedia and all these sources. So, why is it that we can't treat it as if it has some source to it or has some kind of databases to it?
well, because it's not fed all the sources on the internet. It's scrapes some things
Mhm.
and it's fed specific data sets and others, like I was talking before about it's curated special data sets as well. And it learns from interactions with people. And people are messy, right? People can be good, people can be
Do you
bad. So I,
Yeah, do you know how models like ChatGPT and Gemini were formed? My impression, and I don't know, this is a part I don't know much about, but my impression was they just fed everything into the internet, from the internet into database, and then used it to create these models. But how are these models actually formed?
well, I'm not an engineer.
Right.
So
But
I'm
what's
not
your
going to go down
understand?
that
What's
path, but
your understanding?
it's not the whole internet. Like I said, it begins with data sets. And then
Mm,
the AI is robust enough that it can learn things from you, like preferences and certain things like that. It can also have certain data sets that are scraped. I don't know the logistics or the legalities or how they do that, but it's not like the whole internet. And I'll give you one example of how this is problematic.
Yeah.
And I also talked about this on my blog in a piece called The Default Body. So one example that comes up a lot in positive use cases, especially this was an early conversation, but it still pops up all the time, was its use in radiology. People would say, this AI is great. You can put 1 million x-rays into it, and it will be able to scan all of them very quickly and say which ones are more likely to have early tumors, and show those to a doctor who can then determine, et cetera, who should have further exams to see if they've got early signs of cancer. All right, here's the problem. The data that it's built on is data that humans made and went into it, okay? In the United States, I'll use this as an example. Medical research was typically done on males, on white males. Up until the 1990s, when we had our first female Surgeon General who pushed for national law that there had to be, when appropriate, in medical research, women and men. That's still not necessarily applied in every situation, but it opened it up. But that means that a lot of medical research before the 90s was done on white men. So you put in 1 million, for example, these lung pictures with cancer, and that sort of data that has been trained on, the AI has been trained on, was the historical data of white men, largely. That's the data that it was fed, the default model.
Right.
That means that it missed early signs of tumors in women, people of color, all sorts of things that humans found later, but the AI didn't understand were early warning signals in other bodies, right? So that's sort of like a very high-level way to describe what happened. But to give you an example, it's what we say garbage in, garbage out, right? Just because it's on the web doesn't mean it's real or that you can understand it without its historical context or its cultural context. So to present that radiology anecdote without context, it sounds amazing. Oh, it's going to help us discover cancer. To understand the very human limitations of the data that it's absorbed and reflecting back, but it's not saying most of this data was scraped from white men, blah, 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 blah. And that's how I learned this.
They should actually have disclaimers with the AI. The AI should have disclaimers.
Well, that would make it transparent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not right now. It's not
a little bit more transparent. Yeah.
And then if it was transparent, you would see all of the mistakes it made, because it would say, like, we're just quoting this piece of work, or I'm making up stuff. Like Julie
Why do
Carpenter
you
never
think
wrote
that
that.
they're not making it as transparent as they could?
For one, because for those reasons I just
Money,
stated, yes. Besides, it would incredibly complicate things. It might be making up findings from, that's the part that they don't necessarily understand, because it mushes everything together. So if it made up, let's say, a title for something that it says that I wrote, even though I never did, and you said, what was your source for that? It might give me, I don't know, 100, 300 sources of things that made it algorithmically decide with certain probability to make up that specific title. I mean, people aren't really interested in the computer logic behind how something happened, and the engineers and the way it's designed. They have no interest in just making it a transparent, readable process, because then there would be an audit trail.
Yeah.
Right. And nobody's really interested in, if you were interested in an audit trail, you'd actually be doing the research yourself, right? But that's for people who just want authority, voice, tell me what to do, right? With no transparency, with no audit trail, no provenance for any information.
What's dangerous about this technology, I think, is that as humans, we want someone to tell us what to do. We just want an answer, and it's very convenient to type it in, and it just gives us an answer. And I like your point about how it speaks with so much authority. It speaks with so much authority.
Accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So I was going to say, like I was saying about I understand where people would turn to it as a form of therapy. It's because of its accessibility, because it speaks with authority, because we're being told by people who were told they're very smart and experts. We're being told by them that it can help us, that it can be supportive. It's actually being marketed as therapeutic or used as therapeutic in different settings, And that's, again, where I think
There's a
people are
lot of
being
people
mostly.
using it for life questions or,
Yeah.
throughout the day, like, oh, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? And it gives you answers and then they'll do it.
As Sam Altman was saying on Jimmy Fallon the other day, it was sort of all over social media. Jimmy Fallon asked Sam Altman of, ChatGPT fame and OpenAI about his new baby. And Sam Altman said, I can't imagine having a baby without having generative AI because I ask it questions about raising my child all the time. And
Mm.
that got very polarizing responses on social media, right? There are people who think that's amazing and innovative, and there are other people who say, what are you missing out on? Because you're busy chasing what you believe is an innovation instead of actually interacting directly with your child. You're trying to offload it, looking for answers, like you said. What do
Right.
I do? Somebody tell me what to
It's
do.
this obsession with efficiency too. And like
It
life
is.
moving so fast that it just feels like you have to use AI to like keep up with how fast everything is working. Yeah. Do you see any positives with AI? Like, what are some positive ways it could be used?
I mean, short term, it can it can be interesting to interact with.
Mhm.
It's certainly a robust um, technology. Like I was saying, it's innovative in that way. It's really, boy.
It's like playing with The Sims. It's like a sandbox. That's what I like about AI.
Actually, why don't I would love to hear it. Tell me what you like about it. That's what I would love to hear. How you sort of hinted at it a little bit, and you were
Yeah,
saying a little how you use it, but I would love to hear what
it's
you
just
like about it.
I like playing with it. I like I used to play The Sims as a child and I would just like dress up The Sims and have do whatever I wanted to The Sims. It's just kind of like this thing you can do whatever you want to. And it's kind of fun to see like different hypotheticals play out.
Mhm.
I joke about this, but I don't like to use full sentences anymore. I'll just type whatever word, vomit, put it in there, and then I'll make an email out of it. It's great.
Mhm. Mhm.
I find that so fascinating that I can do that. I love it as a copy editor. Um, Someone told me some recipes they put, like, oh, I just have these 7 things in my fridge. What can I make for dinner? And it came up with an answer. Um, and someone told me, oh, you're not, I don't know if you're going to like this story, but someone told me that they used it for couples therapy. Like they just like talked to the AI, each person, the AI was a neutral party, and then the AI
It's
did couples
it's
therapy.
less than neutral, but yeah, as we just got done saying, though, it actually is biased in the information that
Not that
it
I would
puts out.
endorse it for couples therapy, but I just
Yeah.
find it so fascinating. I think we're all just playing with the different possibilities of it and what it could be. And I really like imagining the future with AI, like where could this technology lead? I'm actually not sure why I'm so fascinated with AI, but the more I use it, the more I'm like, oh, this actually is much more intelligent than I would have thought. Because sometimes I'll just not use complete sentences and it'll understand what I'm trying to prompt. But there's also limitations, as we've been discussing, but I just find the technology so fascinating.
Yeah, something interesting you touched on in the beginning is how you were saying you like to play with it. And I have noticed in my research that there are some gender differences in how we're approaching things.
Oh.
So I'll give you a personal example as well. When I used to play online role-playing games, and to me, I used to say it reminds me of paper dolls. I could
Yeah,
go shopping. I could
that's what
try
it kind
on
of is like. Yeah, just playing
different
Barbie or
clothes with
something.
the avatars. You can make up
Exactly.
stories and all. So it was a very creative, like an adult way of playing dolls.
It is.
And
That's exactly
right,
what it is. Yeah.
exactly. And that's okay for girls to do, right? We're cultured that way. So that's sort of, it's a way that that technology is approachable to a lot of women. Similarly, what's interesting about this technology, when we were talking about love and companionship before, something that was interesting that I've noticed is many more women have been open about their feelings of romance towards AI than towards disembodied AI like ChatGPT, then have been willing to come forward and talk about their ideas of romance with robots, for say, which is another area that I research. There's a lot of good reasons for that. And one of them is that historically, women have a history where it's okay to explore sexuality in literotica, basically reading literature about sex, writing fan fiction about sex. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey started as fan fiction, right? I believe. So there's like a legacy that women's sexuality is okay to be expressed through writing
Right.
uh, and romance that way. So that has been, I think, exploring sexuality with either yourself somehow and your own fantasies or with partner or partners
It
that are
is
okay with it.
it is great about exploring and creativity. And I've also, I don't know if you've ever done this prompt, but it's like, tell me about myself. Like based on all the prompts I've ever, have you ever had it summarized, tell me about myself? And I just found I love it for like insight. I just find it so interesting.
That's the last thing that would cross my mind. That's so interesting
I've
to me.
had people
But,
tell me I used it, tell me about myself, and they're like, oh my gosh, this really is me.
well, okay. I mean, again, I think I think that in the short term, people might find a relief in it. But again, we're looking at potential confirmation bias. It's like self-reporting in personality studies, right? Where you do, like, some workplaces have personality studies that are not really based in science. And the problem with a lot of these personality studies that they do in workplaces, um, where you might have a result like, I don't know, INTJ or something like that, is that it's self-reported. So it's your own, um,
It's a
what
mirror
you,
back to yourself of yourself or something.
right, exactly. So you're just mirroring things back to yourself. And similarly, you're still presenting a version of yourself, like I was saying in the
This is
beginning, to
true.
AI.
Yes, this is
Yeah, it's
true.
a very limited part. Even if you feel like, oh, it's intimate, I'm sharing about my work life or my family life or, my significant other or my children or whatever, it's still only seeing a limited portion of what you show it. And it's like your social media face, right?
Good
Or
take.
it's the face you present to your mom or the face you present
It's
to the
true. It's just like
retail.
reflecting it back to you. It won't
Exactly.
necessarily challenge your own delusions about yourself.
Right. And not only that, it's a funhouse mirror. It's
Yes,
not an
that's a
actual.
good analogy, a funhouse mirror. Yeah.
And I've said that for years in different things because people will say AI is a mirror, and I will correct them and say it's a funhouse mirror because it doesn't really understand what it means to be human. It doesn't understand context. It doesn't understand emotions, historical legacy, anything like that.
Do you
So
know how hard it is to find someone that will say what you just said? Because there's so much hype around AI these days. I find it hard to even find sources to help me understand AI at a deeper level at this and to become more literate in it. And so that's why I found your blog really helpful because it breaks it down in a very understandable way. And you're one of the few voices I'm really hearing that is actually talking about this. Do you know of any other sources that people can
yeah,
go to?
there's the Fair Institute, like I was saying before, Timnit Guru and the people in Fair. and I'm sure in like the liner notes, you can put a
Yeah.
link to them as well. They've been studying this a lot longer than I have. There's a bunch of books that came out this year that are critical of AI, and I can give you some titles as well. But again, these sort of require a deeper dive, right? And it's when somebody is so busy throughout their day with just living life. I mean, we're living in really difficult, interesting times, right? We've got wars happening. We've got political divisiveness. We've got massive layoffs happening. We have, the world doesn't feel sustainable now in many ways, and people are struggling. And this thing comes along that you're being told, again, by very smart people, supposedly, that this thing will cure and solve everything. And then it appears to, and it gives the surface impression of doing that. I think to expect people to educate themselves and sit
Just so
down and
much. Yeah.
right, it is a lot. I appreciate that you mentioned the blog, because what I do try to do with that is engage anybody who's interested and make it a voice that's understandable, doesn't get technical, doesn't get,
That's what I like
you know,
about it. It's very understandable.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I try to make it so anybody who's
It's
interested,
hard as a scientist because you want to
yeah.
like go into all the technicalities and everything. But yeah, I just really enjoy you break things down. Um, and one question I have for you is, well, I guess you answered it. But I believe that humans have an inner calling inside themselves, something that uniquely makes us human. Do you think that is the case? Like, as this technology develops, like, is there something that it's not going to be able to replicate about humans, even though it's based on all of our experiences? And I think you answered this.
No, what is it you think that I said? I'd love to hear that.
I think you said that, no, it's not going to be able to replicate this
Yeah.
quality we have as humans, our humanity. It's not going to be able to, period.
Yeah, I think AI is going to be its own thing, whatever directions, and I say directions because it doesn't have to go AGI. That might be one direction that it goes, is that it's going to be its own thing. It's also going to become ambient and all around us, as we've sort of
Mhm.
discussed. And that means it's going to be harder for us to extricate ourselves and remove yourself to a non-AI
Mhm.
environment. Um, I think that in some ways we might eventually have a reduced tolerance for some types of labor, like writing, which unfortunately
I
is
think we're going to lose a
unfortunately.
lot of brain cells. Like, people are going to forget how to do certain things, and we're going to lose like certain aspects of what we know as humans right now.
That's possible, but I also think that we will learn to value some human traits,
Hope
our
so.
authenticity,
I hope
our
so.
fragileness. I think so. I think that it's ingrained in us as humans to seek other people. That's one reason we're so attracted to this technology that replicates humans without any of the messy parts, right?
Yeah.
It's the cool parts of potential humanness, of interacting, of socialness, but it's all positive takeaways. It's not negative. It's nothing, you're not risking any emotional vulnerability. You're not going to ever get AI dumping its problems on you or doing a trauma dump, right? Or
Right.
needing anything from you in return. But what's going to happen is we're going to actually learn to value those things, because this
I
is
hope.
going to sound trite, but as much as, for every positive thing in your life, for an attachment can come the sadness of its loss. But that's what makes us human, is being able to experience these very human emotions and understanding intent and context and relationships and how we respond to each other and our inconsistencies. And we're going to learn to value things that don't just always confirm our biases and aren't just always telling us things that we want to hear and challenge us in some way. I hope, that's my hope, is
You
that we
know
don't
what?
lose that.
Thank you so much. That's very beautiful to just remember our humanity and the in the imperfections and the vulnerability and the fragility that we bring, and that these are things to continue to value. And that hopefully with AI and the technology, it's just a reminder for us to really embrace our humanity and remember it. Okay. So I have one last question, which is, on this podcast, we talk about inner calling inside ourselves. Like times in our life, we heard something that just kept calling us and calling us. Has there been a time that you heard an inner calling or an intuition that was really strong? And what did you do? Did you follow it? And where did it lead?
That's such a good question. That's such a good question. This is going to sound trite, but it made a big difference in my personal life. A long time ago, I worked with Pete Seeger and his wife. Pete Seeger is a folk singer, was very popular in the 60s and 70s. And he, before he passed away, used to run a music festival in New York State. And the money went to support the Hudson River Valley and keeping it environmentally safe and clean. And he would have this music festival up until like he was in his 80s and wearing hearing aids and was difficult. And people would say, Pete, why are you still doing this huge undertaking every year? And he said, because the Hudson River Valley, because he's lived there like the most of his life, it's important to him and it's his backyard and he can't fix the whole world, but he can clean up his own backyard. And, he sort of made it sound on the one hand like this big undertaking he did, this huge music festival he did every year. He sort of made it sound like it was no big thing by cleaning up his own backyard, but he also made it sound like it was achievable. Mm-hmm. It was goal setting within boundaries. Sometimes the world can feel overwhelming, right? You can feel overpowered by a situation, whether it's being forced to use AI or whatever it is. But you're still able to clean up your own backyard, however you define it, whether that's how you use AI, right? Or how you design it, or, just your everyday life. I often try to recalibrate by thinking, is this something I can control and is that I want to spend time on? And, like this is a set of problems that I want to spend time on. I'm trying very hard to clean up my own backyard. So I would say that's how it's affected my inner calling.
So did you hear an inner calling to do this work? And that's what led you to do it?
I guess in a strange way, if I piece together little things throughout my life that led me to this path, I think so.
How did they present themselves to you, the inner callings? Was it like just something you felt inside yourself, or was it a voice, or?
It wasn't a voice. I think it was, I'm also good at seeing patterns and putting little pieces together throughout my life. So for example, I had the advantage of having a father who is very intellectually interested in doing things with me and my brother as kids, like electronic circuit kits, or having the first generation home computer where I had to learn how to program to use it in BASIC and things like that, that set me up for an interest in technology. He was also a sociologist. He was a professor of sociology. So I was also very interested in culture and society and how people interacted with things, right? And then on top of that, I always had a very invested interest in science fiction and stories and what kind of future there could be, the possibilities and the kind of future that I hoped for people. And definitely, I'm part of that generation. I say this, I talk about this in my book, The Naked Android, a lot, about how science fiction inspires real people in science all the time, myself included. And I was lucky enough to grow up in an era with the first Star Wars movie, right? Right. That was so amazing, with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, with movies that foregrounded discovery and the positive things technology could do. It was sort of pre-Terminator. When you look at something like Close Encounters, it was about how can we understand the aliens and communicate with them in a positive way and have an exchange, right? And of culture in so many ways. And I think it's of that era that I grew up in as well. So that sort of helped define my backyard, my
It
inner
strikes
calling.
me that you've lived out your inner calling. You're
I
living it out.
suppose for good or for bad, right? Because I mean, we joke, and it's even memes that the scientists in those movies are ones nobody listens to.
That's you now. That's you now.
So I'm really fulfilled with the science fiction inner calling.
Oh my gosh. Well,
But I'm still cleaning up my own backyard. I'm still trying.
mm,
So yeah.
thank you. Well, thank you for your work. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for being a woman in this space. I just want to let you know it means a lot. So,
Oh, thank you. And thank you for recognizing that and noticing that back at you.
and that was really invaluable. And I just really appreciate your voice in
Oh,
this.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me. It was a great discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
If you'd like to support the show, the most helpful way would be to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or Spotify. It would just be awesome if you could also share an episode that you found helpful with a friend. That would help spread the word about Inner Calling and helps us make the show better for you each time. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a beautiful day.